Next up on the Cosmic News Network, First Contact with Joshua Put.
Good morning, Earthlings. Good. How you doing today? Good. How you doing today? Welcome to First Contact Radio. Welcome to First Contact Radio. To talk about all these things I'm talking about is because in life, everything is energy. Every single thing that's out there.
Yo, it's First Contact with Joshua Poe. He's the man on the mic, just in case you didn't know it. Covering news from all around the globe, from the weather and space to UFOs. Let's talk politics and make you open your eyes. Conspiracy theories and government lies. We'll dig it all up and try to find the proof. Cause the times is demand the truth. It's time.
First Contact Radio. We have
Times is demand the truth.
First Contact Radio. We have live. First Contact Radio.
It's time to demand
First Contact Radio. We have arrived. First Contact Radio.
It's time to demand.
Good morning, Earthlings. How you doing today? Welcome back to First Contact Radio. Hope you had a good weekend. Well, it's a new month. January has come and gone, and now we are in February. As a matter of fact, the second day of February. Isn't today the day the groundhog is supposed to come out and see his shadow or stay in and sleep longer? I guess we'll find out over the course of the day what Pugsatani Phil, is that his name? Pugsatani Phil will have to say today. Anyway, let's jump on to see what we're dealing with. Today is the 2nd of February. 2nd of February, sun sign in Aquarius. Moon sign has been in Cancer over the course of the weekend. We are making a transition into the next sign. We're in the middle of the void, of course, or actually the tail end of the void, of course, because in little more than almost 3 hours from now, just at 11:41 a.m. is when we move into Leo as our moon sign. So we're coming out of this sign here. So when we're looking at the signs, what we want to look at is we're looking at the elements. So we've got air is the element of Aquarius. It's those ideas that are moving us forward futuristically to our thoughts of where we're going to go in the future, what it is that we want to place our love in the future, how we're going to get there. We've just come out of this emotional phase right here with Cancer. So all this weekend has been a lot of water, a lot of emotions, a lot of feelings that have been around. And as of 7:37 p.m. last night is when we went into this void, of course. Void, of course, again, is every 2.5 days the moon goes to another sign. At the end of the time when it's in one sign, going into the next sign, sometimes there's a little bit of a lag time from when it leaves one and enters the next. Sometimes it could be a full day. Sometimes it could be less than a day. And in this case, it went void, of course, at 7:37, and at 11:41 is when it goes into the next sign. So at 7:37 last night is when it came out of, the moon sign came out of Cancer. Was the end of that story about Cancer, and then we have all of these time and to process it until the next moon sign. Then the next moon sign coming up now is Leo, which is fire. So fire, creativity. Leo is the tarot card of strength. It deals with the heart. It deals with love. It deals with channeling our energies through love. So a lot of love is all about what Leo is dealing with and what Leo brings to us, that creative aspect. We also have to learn how to tame the beast within, because when we think about the tarot card of strength, we have a woman, the feminine aspect of life, taming the male aspect to be able to utilize those energies in a much more effective way. Okay, so Leo coming in 11:41. After that, this evening, Saturn is going to get into the mix and bring some discipline to everything that's going on. So we have a whole day, from 11:41 to 6:53, where we're just feeling that Leo energy, feeling the Aquarian energy, before we start to discipline where we're going to do it. And think of discipline, another word is focus. Focusing all of that energy down, disciplining that energy down to one, constructive point that can be utilized. So that's what we're looking for when we say discipline. And it's a trine, which means there's a nice, good, positive vibe, a good opportunity. We're open for the change. Change is ready for us. We're looking at how we could constructively make these changes. And then 11:30 tonight, Mercury jumps on the teeter-totter here with old Leo, the lion, and this is an opposition. It looks like a teeter-totter, which is why I call it as such. And just think of when you were younger, playing on a teeter-totter. Somebody jumps off one side, it gets out of balance. If you both stay on together, that's what's going on. Mercury's on one side. Mercury, the messenger, communicator. The other side is Leo. One side is air, one side is fire. And these two are playing together. The question is, will they play nicely or not? And then the full moon, which we'll look at it will look full tonight. It officially goes full tomorrow, but we're close enough that when we look at it, we'll understand where it is. All right, so Leo and Aquarius. Today, 13 Shavat is on the Jewish calendar, the year 5775. The daily thought for 13 Shavat is inner voice. There is an outer world and there is an inner world. As deep as you penetrate, as high as you reach, there is always something beneath, breathing inside. The outer world is made of things. Breathing inside the things are words. Words are the outside. Inside the words are stories. The story is the outside. Inside the story is a thought. Thoughts are the outside. Inside the thoughts is a great light. At the origin of the light is the beginning that cannot be known. The outside we touch and we come to know. The inside we must wait and be still so that it may speak to us, as it did at Sinai, as it does whenever we learn Torah with all our heart and soul. All right. Current moon phase is, as I said, it's just about to the full, 99% of the way there. Close enough. Close enough to be a full moon. Solar wind, we're moving pretty good here. Look at this, 690.8 kilometers per second. So right off the bat, we know that the wind, the solar wind, the geometric, the energy around us is excited. So much so that we are in the middle of a storm. Now, I think this is very significant, and reason why I, on a daily basis, bring up this space weather is for this reason alone. Because we live in a world where energy is around us. We can physically see with our eyes what the weather is doing, what that cosmic energy around us is doing. And this exactly shows us that. The planetary K-index, it shows us what the sun is doing, how we are being affected, and we're in the middle of a storm. So if you're feeling a bit antsy, it could be due to all of the accelerated energy around you. If you were a little restless when you were sleeping, if you're feeling a bit restless and just like you've got this energy around you and you don't quite understand it, this helps to explain a bit more what's going on once you understand that the sun is doing its activities. And so we're in a storm. Okay, it's 4 right now. It's going to go up to 5. Could get up to 5 in the next 24 hours. And this is a scale that goes up to 9. So we're already at the halfway point and reaching past that. So we got some nice good activity. And normally, if you notice, the wind here isn't usually this high. Usually the solar wind we're usually seeing is in the 400 range, sometimes in the 300 range. So we've made quite a good jump up just with what's going on, and probably a lot of it is coming off of this big old coronal hole right down here in the bottom of the sun. And we have a notification that over the next day we're still going to be feeling this effect. So see how it feels when you go out in the world today, what you notice by it. Now, M-class flare possibility was up and is up to 60%, but it is dropping down 55 in the next 24 to 48 hours. M-class flare possibilities at 15%. Geomagnetic storm activity is going to be dropping as well. It's 45 now in the mid latitudes, dropping to 35. 70 in the high latitudes, dropping down to 45. So a lot has certainly been affected by the old coronal hole and the solar wind coming from it. And up in the sky tonight, after dark, we've got the full moon. We look to the left and down, and then we're going to see Jupiter, and a little bit left, and there we have Leo, Regulus. Okay, shortly after dark. It tells us the bright moon is just a day short of full this evening. Look for its to its right for Procyon. It's not on the chart here. And then lower left, Jupiter. And above the moon, Castor and Pollux. All right, there you have it. That is our cosmic weather. Gets us started with what's going on out in the world today. That brings us up to UFO news.
This is the UFO News with Joshua Poet.
All right, Dirk. Thank you very much. So UFO news today got a whole bunch of stories. First one goes up to Mars. Here we have what looks to be some sort of object on the surface of Mars. Again, comes from NASA photo sources. This is over at UFOsightingsdaily.com. Scott C. Waring. JPL has finished upgrading MSL software and have proudly announced the science can continue. The term science must mean something else if it gets applied to anything to do with the exploration of Mars by any of the JPLS surface tech. Take a look at the latest migraine headache JPLs have thrown to the independent searchers to sort out, namely a metallic hubcap shaped object thinly veiled with a layer of Malin's artificial rust pixel easily removed. It seems the rover roved all around this object but couldn't detect it with any of the science equipment. Must have been busy drilling again, huh? Funny how the big gun masked camera has been too busy looking at its disintegrating wheels to take any new HD images of the looming Mount Sharp summit. No, that job has been allocated to the rock. Okay. So you get the idea. There's all kind of things going on up there, and our rover just can't be bothered to take some of these pictures and make them fully public and really explore. It's kind of crazy, you know, all the stuff that goes on in space and the denial that goes on and what we're not allowed to see. Seems really silly. We could certainly solve all of our issues just by pointing cameras in certain ways and exploring things. But the powers that be count on the fact that there aren't tons of people interested, and that's kind of it. Here we have up at the moon 2 towers near crater on the moon. There's a tower, there's a tower. You can actually see the towers with your own eyes. Astronomer finds moon towers or edges of crater, on the edges of crater. An astronomer was looking at the moon and fortunate enough to catch these 2 towers at the edge of a crater. There are a lot of different alien artifacts on the moon, that much I promise, but are many difficult to see. But you can see this with an infrared camera looking through the scope. The guy doesn't, but still caught some megaliths. If you have an IR camera, please check out the moon sometime. You will be blown away. Okay. So we have 2 minute 42 seconds video looking up at the moon. There we go. There's your little towers. You can see them right there. See them? Very interesting. All right. I'm going to move on. Next one, we're going to go over here. Dark Horse UFO seen over Mexico volcano. Volcano Colima. It says, with growing technology every day and people's awareness of aliens around us. Here's our little object here in the UFO. Full disclosure is no longer itching. It is no longer itching itself closer, but now takes leaps and bounds. It's getting harder and harder for aliens to hide from us. The day is coming where they are going to stop trying and forced to reveal themselves or without the government permission. Yeah, the U.S. government forbid aliens from revealing themselves. They do have rules, but today's tech and tomorrow's tech will break down those rules. UFO that resembled a flying horse has been spotted close to one of Mexico's most active volcanoes. The dark horse appeared to have 2 legs and was seen moving or hovering into view out of nowhere as Volcano Colima, 300 miles west of Mexico City, spewed out smoke. captured on webcam after Kalima erupted this week. The enigmatic Equine vanished moments later. Had a large body and seemed to be an animal, but had a thin top, bulging body, and extremities at the bottom. The legs weren't moving, so it clearly wasn't a modern-day Pegasus. Okay, and there's our volcano erupting. And we should see it over on this side coming into view. There it is right there. A flying horse. Just hanging out there. What is that? Alright, moving on. Links available, firstcontactradio.com. Strange triangle UFO filmed over Texas. Triangle UFO craft was captured traveling over San Antonio. A triangle shaped craft can clearly be seen traveling overhead. Triangle craft was about 10, maybe 15 feet in height. Consistent, steady lights. Consistent with known ET craft. Lights do not alternate color. They're ultraviolet, which is why naked eye seems to reflect the light. Okay. This is by Bill Martinez. Captured this. There we go. Okay. So, definitely got something up there. We got the filtered image, got the original. And I'm moving on. ISS, another UFO up by the ISS. This was on the 31st. And there we go. You see it's being pointed to right there. In case you missed it, it's that yellow looking object. Golden looking object. All of these things are gold looking today in the image. Alright. There you go. Very interesting. Indeed. Indeedy. Moving on. Russian fighter and UFO. This says Russian UFO fighter aircraft, UFO voodoo planes, recent air show, Paris, Russia, showing the maneuverability of the latest jet fighters. It's 4 minutes and 10 seconds. And somewhere within here we've got the UFO shows up. Pretty interesting what this ship can do. Wow, look at that. He's definitely very maneuverable. Very interesting. Alright, not quite seeing the UFO here. Let me see if I can skip around to where we might find it. Alright, so links available, you can check it out. I'm not really finding it too easily here, but it is there. And one last piece here. This is NASA confirms extraterrestrial life does exist on other planets. Aliens really do exist. That's the amazing news the space boffins at NASA have confirmed this week. The U.S. Space Agency has spoken for the first time about life on other planets, and they are certain it does exist. Having made this astonishing claim during a conference in Washington, NASA now hopes to scour the universe in hope of finding these alien life forms. And they are planning to use some of the world's most advanced technology to produce a roadmap of space. NASA's already discovered more than 500 planets that could sustain life, and many more are likely to be found. Sarah Seeger, professor of planetary science and physics at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology in Cambridge, said, "Sometime in the near future, people will be able to point to a star and say, that star has a planet like Earth. Astronomers think it's very likely that every single star in our Milky Way galaxy has at least one planet." and they can even determine if the planets are right distance away from their host star to contain liquid water, which is the key ingredient to life as we know it. NASA plans to launch new telescopes in the next few years, including the incredible Webb Space Telescope. The state-of-the-art machine will search for oceans in the form of atmospheric water vapor and look for life on nearby planets that are similar to Earth in size and mass. The technology we're using to explore exoplanets is real, says John Grunsfeld, astronaut and associate administrator for NASA's Mission Directorate in Washington. The James Webb Space Telescope and the next advances are happening now. These are not dreams. This is what we do at NASA. It's what they do. It's what they do, NASA. Never a straight answer, or whatever else they do. That's what they do, they said. Okay, there you go. That's our UFO news for today. I'll be back. We're going to continue on with the Nag Hammadi. Stay tuned.
Come into our circle, Great Spirit. Fill our souls with peace.
Continuing on. So this weekend I was flipping around through the channels, and believe it or not, I know you're going to be surprised when I tell you this, I had stopped on a program and I actually recognized how they were trying to brainwash me and anybody watching that program. That's right. Because in the program, they were trying to tell us how we need to think. And basically, it was describing how, it was talking about, during events that people call conspiracy theorists, how people see things that really aren't there. Or they see things when they imagine that there's some other thing going on other than the official story. And they explained it's because our brain sees these events and we become so confused that we extrapolate these other ideas and these other things which aren't part of reality. So basically, what they were trying to say is if you don't believe the official story, then your mind is just making up all kind of stuff. And that's all it is. So the effect of brainwashing didn't really work on me, because as I was watching the program, I recognized what they were doing, and therefore I just feel like I broke the machine, so to speak, and I changed the channel to something else because it was just pointless to watch it. But that's what's going on out there in the world, There's all of these thought processes that take place, and, all of the topics on the show really kind of lend themselves to helping understand what is going on. Because everything that's taking place around us are all events that are happening within this world of energy that we live in. Once we understand how this world of energy operates, we learn more and more about it every day. We find ourselves moving within this energy field differently. Once we figure something out, we figured it out. We don't have to go back and refigure it out because we understand. The biggest issues that we have are waddling through all of the different amounts of disinformation that is out there. And that's the real challenge. So the particular theory or conspiracy theory that I have been very interested in these days has been the one dealing with God. Because as you have seen and heard from the readings thus far from the Nag Hammadi Library, that the information is a bit different than what we've been presented publicly in the Holy Bible. Quite different, as a matter of fact, from what's there in many cases. Yet, this Bible is what we have based much of our life upon. And many individuals have followed along with certain patterns. The entire Jewish community follows the book of the Torah, the 5 books, first 5 books of the Bible. And they follow along with all of these traditions that have been set up there. Yet we are finding out that the God of the Old Testament is the very same being that fell from a state of grace. So it's kind of backwards that that is not told to the people, and yet this is what we are given as, here's your book, study this so you learn. But we're really not learning if we are learning, but we're not learning the truth. And that is what is so confusing. I'd say the thing that has been the most eye-opening is seeing the differences between the various books out there on esoteric philosophy or spiritual insight, the Bible, the Apocrypha, just to see the difference in these stories. And it's like once you start to see the reality of how the story goes, it's like looking behind the curtain and seeing the man operating the Wizard of Oz. And it starts to make a bit different sense. So our 2 stories, or the 3 stories we've done so far, I've read from the Apocryphon of John. We've completed that one. It was Jesus talking about the archons, these beings that created life. He talked about how the archons came into being. Talked about the Mother, Father, God, the Son, or daughter, which was the autogens. And from the autogens, we move out into the 4 lights, or 4 different realms. And then from those realms, each one of them had other realms that were created, and each of these 4 had 3 offspring. And it was in one of those where we had a problem, a rebellion of some sorts. Eventually, I'm going to bring up the story of the Anunnaki and overlay it on top of what we're learning here, and you'll find that there is a lot of correlation between that story that the Anunnaki told of what Enlil and Enki went through, and it really ties in much more directly with what is taking place in the Nag Hammadi as opposed to what we see in the New Testament or even the Old Testament. And as we start to see, we realize where these stories have come from. And as we do that, as that saying goes, the truth shall set you free. So we've done the Apocryphon of John. We've done on the origin of the world, and the last one on Friday was the hypostasis of the archons. Today I'm going to read, and probably not going to get through the whole thing today because this is a bit lengthy. I'm going to do the Apocalypse of Adam. The Apocalypse of Adam. So what we've found thus far is Adam was a pretty intelligent being, that Adam was created by Yaldabaoth, and the reason was to imitate what God had created with the intention of trapping this spirit of God into the being. So the human physical body was made, according to these stories and one thing, as a trap. And then once the spirit was in the body, the spirit now allows the body to grow to its fullest potential. And it was the opening of the veil between the physical world and the forgetfulness that the Anunnaki or the archons had built into the system. It's removing that veil when the spirit is telling Adam, you need to eat from the tree, you need to open your eyes. When Epinoia is teaching Adam about where he came from, it's opening his eyes. And once eyes are opened, everything changes. And Adam then becomes available to even much higher wisdom than before, because now Adam is opened and has shown himself as the truth of who he is. Unfortunately, that caused problems for him, because the archons then showed how upset they were, how jealous they were. And that's not really a positive thing for Adam, because then they kicked him out. Eventually, as we see the stories, his wife, Eve, was raped and then gave birth to a couple of children, Cain and Abel. Some stories say it was just Cain that was the one that was born. The others, some say it's Cain and Abel. Either way, they all talk about some sort of abduction or rape that occurred with Eve. We don't hear this in the Bible. In the New Testament or the Old Testament in the story of Genesis. We don't hear this at all. Yet it makes all the difference in the world when, in reality, the one who is helping mankind, humankind, is the one who was at the tree, the serpent. And it wasn't the serpent, it was that female spirit that was speaking temporarily through the serpent to help Adam and Eve to move forward, to open their eyes, to evolve. Okay, so now we're here at the apocalypse of Adam. We've heard of the three stories, plenty of talk of the archons and the rulers, the authorities. We'll see if there's any more of it here. The Nag Hammadi Library, Apocalypse of Adam. The revelation which Adam taught his son Seth in the 700th year, saying, "Listen to my words, my son Seth. When God had created me out of the earth, along with Eve, your mother, I went along with her in glory, which he had seen in the aeon from which we had come forth. She taught me a word of knowledge of the eternal God, and resemble the great eternal angels, for we are higher than the God who created us, and the powers with him whom we did not know." So before I go on, this first section here really kind of outlines what it is that we've heard in these other stories. Talking about Eve right here, how she had taught him. Okay, your mother taught her about the eon from where they had come, the realm. Aeon is another word that is interchanged here with realm. So these other realms were out there, and Eve was teaching Adam about these other realms. Okay, not only did she teach him, but after they learned, it goes on to say they resembled the great eternal angels, and they were higher than the God who created them. Okay, so they acknowledged and understood that their creator God, Yaldabaoth, who's not the be-all end-all God, they understood that they were greater than this being. But then it goes on to say right here that they did not know whom was his creator, where his powers had come from. Okay, so right off the bat, we're getting a lot of information here that is very significant. Then God, the ruler of the aeons and the powers, divided us in wrath, and we became two aeons, and the glory in our hearts left us, me and your mother Eve, along with the first knowledge that breathed within us. And it, glory, fled from us, and it entered into something great, something which had come forth. Not from this first eon which it had come forth, I and Eve, your mother. But it, knowledge, entered into the sacred great eons. For this reason I myself have called you by the name of man, who is the seed of the great generation from whom it comes. After those days the eternal knowledge of God, of truth, withdrew from me and your mother Eve. Since that time we learned about dead things like men. Then we recognized the God who had created us, for we were not strangers to his powers, and we served him in fear and slavery, and after these things we became darkened in our hearts. Now I slept in the thought of my heart. And I saw three men before me, whose likeness I was unable to recognize, since they were not the powers of God who had created us. They surpassed glory and men, saying to me, "Arise, Adam, from the sleep of death. Hear about the eon and seed of the man to whom life has come, who came from you and from Eve, your wife." When I heard these words from the great men who were standing before me, then we sighed, I and Eve, in our hearts. And the Lord God who had created us stood before us. He said to us, "Adam, why were you both sighing in your hearts? Do you not know that I am the God who created you? And I breathed into you the spirit of life as a living soul." Then darkness came upon our eyes. Then the God who created us created a son from himself and Eve, your mother. I knew sweet desire for your mother, for in the thought of I knew a sweet desire for your mother. Then the vigor of our eternal knowledge was destroyed in us, and weakness pursued us. Therefore the days of our life became few, for I knew that I had come under the authority of death. Now then, my son Seth, I will reveal to you things which those men whom I saw before me at first revealed to me. After I have completed the times of this generation, and the years of the generation have been accomplished, then something slave, something blank. The rain showers of God the Almighty will be poured forth, so that he might destroy all flesh of God the Almighty, so that he might destroy all the flesh from the earth on account of the things that it seeks after, along with those from the seed of men to whom passed for life of the knowledge which came from me and Eve your mother. For they were strangers to him. Afterwards great angels will come on high clouds, and will bring those men into the place where the Spirit of life dwells. Glory there come from the heavens to earth, and the whole multitude of flesh will be left behind in the waters. Then God will rest from his wrath, and will cast his power upon the waters, and will give power to his sons and their wives by means of the ark, along with the animals, whichever he pleased, and the lords of the heaven, when he called and released upon the earth. And God will say to Noah, whom the generation will call Decalion, Behold, I have protected you in the ark, along with your wife and your sons and their wives and their animals, and the birds of heaven, for which you called and released upon the earth. Therefore I will give the earth to you, you and your sons. In kingly fashion they will rule over it, you and your sons, and no seed will come from you of the men who will not stand in my presence in another glory. Then they will become as the cloud of the great light. Those men will come who have been cast forth from the knowledge of the great aeons and the angels. They will stand before Noah and the aeons, and God will say to Noah, Why have you departed from what I told you? You have created another generation so that you might scorn my power. Then Noah will say, I shall testify before your might that the generation of these men did not come from me, nor my sons' knowledge. And he will those men and bring them into the proper land, and build them a holy place, and they will be called by that name, and dwell there 600 years in a knowledge of imperishability. And the angels of the great light will dwell within them. No foul deed will dwell in their hearts, but only the knowledge of God. Then Noah will divide the whole earth among his sons, Ham, Japheth, and Shem. He will say to them, My sons, listen to my words. Behold, I have divided the earth amongst you. But serve him in fear and slavery all the days of your life. Let not your seed depart from the face of God the Almighty, and your son of Noah. My seed will be pleasing before you and before your power. Seal it by your strong hand in fear and commandment, so that the whole seed which came forth from you may not be inclined away from you, the God the Almighty, but it will serve in humanity and fear of its knowledge. Then others from the seed of Ham and Japheth will come, 400,000 men, and enter into another land, and sojourn with those men who came forth from the great eternal knowledge. From the shadow of their power will protect those who have sojourned with them from every evil thing and every unclean desire. Then the seed of Ham and Japheth will form 12 kingdoms, and their seed will enter into the kingdom of another people. Then will take counsel who are dead of the great aeons of imperishability. They will go to Sakla, their god. They will go into their powers, accusing the great men who are their glory. And they will say to Sakla, What is the power of these men who stood in your presence, who were taken from the seed of Ham and Japheth, who will number 400,000 men? They have been received into another aeon, from which they came forth, and they have overturned all of the glory of your power and the dominions of your hand. For the seed of Noah, through his sons, has done all of your will, and so have all of the powers in the eons over which you might rule. Well, both of these men and the ones who are sojourners in their glory have not done your will, but they have turned aside your whole throng. Then the God of the aeons will give them some of those who serve him. They will come upon that land where the great men who will have not been defiled, nor will be defiled by any desire, for their soul did not come from a defiled hand, but it came from a great commandment of an eternal angel. Then fire and sulfur and asphalt will cast upon these men, and fire and blinding must come over those eons, and the eyes of power of the illuminators will be darkened, and the aeons will not be seen in those days. The great clouds of light will descend, of the clouds of light will come down upon them from the great eons. Abraxas and Sablo and Gamiel will descend and bring those men out of the fire and the wrath, and will take them above the eons and the rulers of the powers, and take them away of life, and take them away, the eons, dwelling place of the great, there with the holy angels and the aeons. The men will be like those angels, for they are not strangers to them, but they will work with the imperishable seed. Once again, for the third time, the illuminator of knowledge will pass by in great glory, in order to leave something of the seed of Noah and the sons of Ham and Japheth, to leave for himself fruit-bearing trees, and they will redeem their souls from the day of death. For the whole creation that came from the dead will be under the authority of death. But those who reflect upon the knowledge of the eternal God in their hearts will not perish, for they have not received spirit from this kingdom alone, but they have received from an eternal angel, illuminator, will come upon that is dead of Seth, and will perform signs and wonders in order to scound the powers and their ruler. Then the God of the powers will be disturbed, saying, "What is the power of this man who is higher than we?" Then he will arouse a great wrath against the man, and the glory will withdraw and dwell in holy houses which it has chosen for itself, and the power will not see it with their eyes, nor will they see the illuminator either. Then they will punish the flesh of the man upon whom the Holy Spirit came. Then the angels and all the generations of the powers will use the name in error, asking, "Where did the error come from? Or where did the words of deception, which all the powers have failed to discover, come from?" From the first heaven says of him that he came from a spirit to heaven. He was nourished in the heavens, he received glory of that one and the power. He came to the bosom of his mother, and thus he came to the water. And the second kingdom says about him that he was from the great prophet. And a bird came, and he took the child who was born and brought him into a high mountain, and he was nourished by the birds of heaven. An angel came forth there, said to him, "Arise, God has given glory to you." He received glory and strength, and thus he came to the water. The third kingdom says of him that he came from a virgin womb. He was cast out of his city, he and his mother. He was brought to a desert place. He was nourished there. He came and received glory and strength, and thus he came to the water. The fourth kingdom says of him that he came from a virgin. Solomon sought her, he and Phareslo, and Saul and his armies which had been sent out. Solomon sent his armies out of demons to seek out the virgin, and they did not find the one whom they sought, but the virgin who was given them, and it was she they fetched. Solomon took her. The virgin became pregnant and gave birth to their children there. She nourished him on the border of the desert, where he had been nourished. He received glory and power from the seed from which he was begotten, and thus he became to the water. The fifth kingdom says of him that he came from the drop of heaven. He was thrown into the sea. The abyss received him and gave birth to him and brought him to heaven. He received glory and power, and thus he came to the water. Okay, we're going to stop right there. We're going to pick up tomorrow at the sixth kingdom. So very interesting thus far. Again, we see Adam talking about, and the story is referencing to two different deities. You have the all God, the eternal God, Mother, Father, and then you have this false God, Yaldabaoth, or Yahweh, who is on earth. And as we understand from the other documents that we read, that ultimately Yaldabaoth is overthrown by his mother Sophia, and once he is overthrown, he is replaced with his son Sabaoth. So if we think of the different deities that we are aware of, Sabaoth is certainly one of those. Adonai Sabaoth is one of those. So what I find is there's a great deal of food for thought with all of these writings, because it certainly takes the thinking into considering a much bigger picture and who is involved out there in the story that we should want to know more about, and who are those that we've learned about that really weren't the ones in power that we need to know about. To me, it's very bizarre that we have a whole world that was created by a being that all of these stories say is a fallen being, someone who is ignorant, born out of ignorance. And yet that is the one who has put this world together. Doesn't mean that that creator didn't know how to create a nice world and wanted to put good into it. It just is a little backwards that We have this world that's created by a being that is not in that state of perfection, and therefore it could be understood then why this world might be created with some imperfections. Perhaps why we're dealing with a world that has both good and bad going on here. Why that Yaldabaoth created both angels and demons. There was something in there that was just allowed both to exist simultaneously, and when they exist, well, things happen. All right, that is the Nag Hammadi for today, the Apocalypse of Adam. Tomorrow we'll finish that, and we'll just continue on from there. This is an article called All About Reincarnation. All About Reincarnation. It's over at In5D. It says, why do we reincarnate? How do our past lives determine what lessons we will learn in the next life? How long do we wait in between lives? Do we have knowledge or know what we will look like? Who helps us decide what life experience we would like to have? Reincarnation is the religious or philosophical concept that the soul or spirit, after biological death, begins a new life in a new body that may be human, animal, or spiritual, depending on the moral quality of the previous life's actions. The word reincarnation derives from Latin, literally meaning entering the flesh again. There is no word corresponding exactly to the English term rebirth, metempsychosis, transmigration, or reincarnation in the traditional languages of Pali and Sanskrit. Lord Vishnu is known for his 10 incarnations, the Dasha avatars. Celtic religion seems to have had some incarnating gods also. Many Christians regard Jesus as a divine incarnation. Some Christians and Muslims believe, and some prophets say that he may incarnate again. Most Christians, however, believe that Jesus will come again in the second coming at the end of the world, although this is not a reincarnation. The Buddhist concept of reincarnation differs from others in that there is no eternal soul, spirit, or self, but only a stream of consciousness that links all life. Psychiatrist Ian Stevenson from the University of Virginia investigated many reports of young children who claimed to remember a past life. He conducted more than 2,500 case studies over a period of 40 years and published 12 books, including 20 cases of suggestive of reincarnation and where reincarnation and biology intersect. Stevenson methodically documented each child's statements and then identified the deceased person the child identified with, and verified the facts of the deceased person's life that matched the child's memory. He also matched birthmarks and birth defects to wounds and scars of the deceased, verifying the medical records such as autopsy photographs in reincarnation and biology. Hindus provide several reasons why jiva takes place in the physical bodies. Okay, here we have a whole list of them. To experience the fruits of one's karma, to satisfy one's desires, to complete one's unfinished sadhana, to fulfill a debt, to undergo sufferings because of a great soul curse, and to attack moksha. It says, by grace and compassion of God or a God-realized guru, a jiva gets a human body to purge itself of the layers of base instincts. Spirits reincarnate on Earth because they are being given the opportunity to accelerate their learning process to achieve higher levels of consciousness. This occurs because they become involved with so many more experiences in the physical world. Okay, a lot more to the article, a lot more. But it's always a good thing to understand about our past lives. I don't know if you've ever gone to any past life therapists or read any books on the subjects. I think it's something that maybe I'll have to tackle at some point here because we haven't really gone into it lately. But it's very important. I mean, everything's energy. Energy goes in, energy is recycled. Jesus talked a great deal about reincarnation. Unfortunately, those books didn't make it into the Bible. They were edited out in lieu of some other books and other things that were being talked about. But reincarnation has given us the opportunity to come back and do it again. There are many souls who are here right now during this particular lifetime because we're going through a great transition. So many have come here to be part of this transition. Many have arrived to the planet because they say that they heard the call. Planet Earth needed help. And so we are here to help going through this process. Will there be another reincarnation after this? Or is this an opportunity for all of us to move past the cycle of incarnations that in some cases might be exactly what's going on and gives us an opportunity? Or maybe this is an opportunity for us all to take a big leap. Either way, whatever's going on is something important and significant, which is why we've been hearing so much about it over the years, and our consciousness seems to be catching up with the event itself. So if you haven't done any reincarnation work, include that in your meditations. Include that, exploring who you were in other times. And simply by catching a grasp of that, you begin to understand a little bit more of who you are now and why you do some of the things that you do. All right, that brings us to our channeled message for today. Mary Magdalene. Here we go.
Mary Magdalene, you are pure divine love.
Channeled by Fran Zapata, February 1st, 2015.
Mary Magdalene.
It is I, Mary Magdalene, bringing you sweet tidings and abundant love to all who tune into my energy this day. I am full of love for you all. I am deep within your hearts this now moment. I wish to speak with you today about love. About abundant love to which you have all fostered a deeper connection to and understanding of in these recent times. You understand it on a much deeper level now, do you not? Do you understand deeply that you are love? As you accept the perpetual divine energies pouring into you constantly now, you are no doubt establishing a much deeper understanding of that. As a part of Source, you are also the essence of Source, love. This, no doubt, is not new to you. But I want to explore this further and deeper with you. Love makes up every particle of your being. It saturates the smallest particle of you, and all of you, to the extent that you allow it. You are a walking, talking entity of love, a carrier of love, a perfect example of love manifest to all who are awakening. This requires you of course to not only demonstrate it to others, but to feel it deeply within your core, in every cell, and every smallest particle of every cell and energy system in your being at all times. You are a floating, thriving, penetrating, pulsing vehicle of love. As your crystalline body comes more online, this is becoming more apparent to you. It is essential that you not separate yourselves now from your crystalline body, your Christ consciousness and your love essence, in how you look at yourselves. It is no longer something to attain. It is what you are now. The more you are aware of this in every now moment, the more you will be able to actualize your true divine essence, and thus so your every dream. You can now construct your dreams with this love that is pulsing in every particle of your being. And in doing so, you are an example for others. Love can be used to dissolve every negative aspect of yourself simply by your intention and your acknowledgement that every negative experience, aspect, emotion, and thought is merely a construct waiting to be made whole and pure with your ministering of love, forgiveness and compassion, for yourselves, and for every aspect of your being, and every aspect of others' being. Do you realize that this tool of love can be wielded with utter power and abandon, knowing that with every swipe of it, you become more whole, more entrenched in your divine nature, more whole within all your aspects, and more capable of absorbing and integrating all parts and aspects of you, multidimensionally, as well as with all aspects of Christ consciousness, God consciousness? By absorbing and demonstrating the full vibrational nature of those divine aspects, cosmic rays, you are fully in command of them, and more integrated in full divine expression. Divine love, which is what we are speaking of today, is just one of them. Divine harmony, grace, divine will, and freedom are but a few more, which I will speak of another day. So absorb fully this beautiful divine ray of divine love, more fully each moment, and wield it to raise the vibration of all, to create your dreams, and to sustain and raise the beautiful unity consciousness becoming prevalent and divinely entrenched in your world now. Invite all your cells and every particle of them, invite all parts of your being, to be drenched in love, and let love glue together all parts of you in perfect harmony as you walk, talk and live love. I have encoded in this message the infinitesimal essence of love. Allow it to vibrate within you and allow it to thus color everything you think of and do from this moment on. For this is your birthright. This is your nature. This is your essence. This is your purpose. Magnify this dose of divine love I give you now and saturate your very being with it, and then saturate all parts of you not in love or harmony and watch how you will feel more buoyant and in the zone of love, where it takes over all your thoughts and fuels your dreams, sculpts your dreams, and enables others to do the same. Namaste. I am Mary Magdalene in pure divine love.
Very good message. You know, one thing that comes to mind as I hear these different messages, I often get comments about why the Galactic Federation of Light. And we've, had this discussion before. There are those who think the Galactic Federation of Light is out to get us. They're the bad guys. But there are those who think that they are here to help us. So which one is it? Are they the good guys or are they here to help us? Well, now that we've had an opportunity to hear some of the readings from the Nag Hammadi text, and we understand a little bit more of what's going on out there with the archons, with this control grid that has been put over us, we have become exposed to a certain language that one god or deity uses versus the others. And when we start to hear of things like Christ consciousness terms or love, these all lend itself to the eternal God coming from that divine source. When we hear words that kind of keep us away from that is just physical based, we kind of understand where they're coming from. These messages, I only hear good positive messages because these messages I play talk about things of light, of how to transmute our energies and the fears and doubts of the physical world, how to raise up. So I think that when we listen to these readings and hear these things, I think we should just take in account what is all of the information we have before we place any judgments on whether or not the Galactic Federation of Light is a bad organization. By listening to the words, we can understand if they're trying to keep us from learning or if they're trying to accelerate our learning. And that's the point, and everybody needs to decide for themselves, but it's just a thought that came to mind as I was listening to it in conjunction with everything else that has been going on. All right, and that brings us to Warrior of the Light today. The Warrior of the Light meditates. He sits in a quiet place in his tent and surrenders himself to the divine light. When he does this, he tries not thinking about anything. He shuts himself off from the search for pleasure, from challenges and revelations, and he allows his gifts and his powers to reveal themselves. Even if he does not recognize them, these gifts and these powers are taking care of his life and will influence his day-to-day existence. While he meditates, the warrior is not himself, but a spark from the soul of the world. These are the moments that give him an understanding of his responsibilities and how he should behave accordingly. A warrior of the light knows that in the silence of his heart, he will hear an order that will guide him. So that brings us to our meditation. Close your eyes. Take a deep breath. And exhale. Take another deep breath. And exhale again. And another breath. And exhale. And feel the breath just going in and out. And think about love. And think about the love that fills your being with each and every breath. And think about where this breath comes from. And as we think of the source, we just imagine ourselves as a spark among many sparks in the universe. And we realize that this source of breath, of life, comes to us from the ultimate personification of what we know of as God, Mother, Father, the All-Parent. And we understand that along the way there are those who have assisted the process of life move forward. And we must learn and understand the goodness that came from these individuals, as well as being aware of any of the failings they may have had due to lack of information, being in a state of ignorance. And when we look at all things, we understand that all things have but a place in the universe. They serve a purpose. And though we may not know what the purpose is, we do understand that there is a purpose that will be revealed if we but focus on it. So let's just imagine ourselves living in this world, sending out love and light, sending out positivity, and let that be enough. And just watch how, through the process of sending out love and light to others, how life is changed for us. So just imagine this. Let's take a deep breath. Exhale, just let all of the doubts and fears go away. And just sit in this place of love. And let the subconscious mind continue on the journey. And let's bring the conscious mind back to the present moment on the count of 3. 3, coming back to this present moment filled with confidence. 2, coming back to this present moment filled with faith. And 1, coming back to the present moment happy, healthy, and whole. Happy, healthy, and whole. Take another deep breath. Exhale, and open your eyes. And that's it for today, my friends. That's our show. Thank you very much for being here. We'll continue on tomorrow with the Apocalypse of Adam. I'm probably going to read through it again today so I can catch up a little bit more on the beginning part, because there's a lot there. And then eventually we're going to do a recap just to see how all of these things connect, because they all do. Anyway, that's it. Have an awesome day. Enjoy February. It has now arrived. I love you. Keep loving each other. Talk to you soon. Peace. I'm out of here.